Here we go. This is part 2 of our support video series for today. So we just learned about the strategies and tools, structure, and elements that we'll use to successfully write main body paragraphs for our C&C essay. Now, one of the things that I mentioned there is that we want to reread our introduction. So we're going to go right ahead and reread the introduction. And then I'm going to jump straight into the main body paragraph that I just finished composing. So it's still that initial first draft. So there might be some things in there that we see as we're reading through that I might want to change. Okay, so here we have my title, Unraveling the Heart of Two Nature-Driven Short Stories. It's still a working title. We might want to revise this later, but as it stands, I'm okay with it. The power of the grizzly balanced the ferocity of the tiger, but these two amazing predators are presented from opposing angles in Finlayson's two shorts, the Legend of Old Mossy and A Real Live Tiger Hunt, period. As short stories go, these tales both place the main characters into nature settings and challenge them to cope with dangerous situations. However, there are also stark differences in how the writer does this and what his overall purpose is with these stories. Careful reading and analysis of these two tales will illuminate a density of literary devices. So those are my framing sentences. Now I'm coming into my, this is my thesis here. So let's just highlight the thesis in blue for now. We want to carefully investigate the thesis because it's going to guide us into what the main body paragraph should be talking about. And in fact, what all three main body paragraphs should be focusing on. Thus, a comparison and contrast framework can be powerfully employed to investigate the character development, use of similes and metaphors, and unravel the core themes that the author is striking at with his two nature-focused tales. So we can see there I've got my purpose punch, right? Comparison and contrast framework can be powerfully employed to investigate. So I'm going to be using comparison and contrast to investigate the stories, and then I'm going to focus in on my three core areas: character development, use of similes and metaphors, and core themes, unraveling or trying to dig deeper into the core themes. Okay, good. So let's move now into main body paragraph 1. So as indicated here, we should be seeing that it's going to focus on the character development, which we'll see that it does. Here we go. So the topic sentence is this first sentence right here, and it's very clearly going to state the purpose of this paragraph. Characters drive short stories, and the way characters are represented and developed within such tales ultimately reveals what the author is trying to elucidate with the storytelling process. So a few interesting things about that story. You guys will notice that we've got a removable phrase or a scoopable phrase. Let's highlight that in orange. And I'll just pick those out as we go through. And maybe we'll highlight transitional words or ideas in yellow just to kind of make them stand out as well, so you can see that how I'm using them. So very clearly it states, just kind of to paraphrase it, characters are really important to moving short stories forward, and how they're developed or how they're stated shows what the author is trying to elucidate. Elucidate means to throw light on or to make clear. So this would qualify as an academic vocabulary word. Okay, let's push on. So now we've seen our topic sentence, so we should be moving into our first triad. So this will be the idea sentence coming up. And what you'll notice about the triads in this main body paragraph is that they're going to be what I call augmented triads, because it is a comparison and contrast. So you can kind of augmented citations. You can kind of glue the two citations together because they should be showing either a similarity or a difference, right? So we got two stories here. We might as well put the paraphrases, snuggle them up together because they're going to be discussed together. Okay, so let's move into our first triad here. So here's the concept sentence or the idea sentence. Thus, by delving into the bear, Old Mossy, and the elephant, Lakshmi, readers can unearth the powerful purpose of Finlayson's two nature shorts. So this is an interesting twist. When I mentioned characters, a reader who knows the stories might have thought that I would have been looking at least some human characters, but I've actually done something a bit different here. I've chosen to focus on the animal characters in both stories. So that, I think, is a bit of an interesting perspective to take, and let's see how it goes. So that's the idea sentence. It's making clear which characters I'm going to talk about, and then we'll see what happens next. Okay, here's another transitional phrase, and what we'll notice is once we've mentioned a story title of the first time, so we've got the full story title right here, story titles for both stories at the top. Notice we're italicizing story titles. When you mention a story for the first time, you do want to mention the entire title. But once you've mentioned it once, maybe, or once or twice, then you want to shorten it down to 2 words because the reader's going to be able to make that connection and we can make that jump. So let's go, where are we here? So in Old Mossy, so this is our first kind of editing choice. You'll notice that I didn't yet italicize it. So we're going to want to go ahead and do that. We're going to italicize that story title to fit our parameters. And then we can highlight this in yellow because this is a transitional phrase. So you'll see that I'm using a lot of these transitional phrases. This is actually a PLMPC, prepositional phrase. In Old Mossy, comma, readers followed the tragic figure of a long-lost cub returning to his birth stream, comma, but he finds a logging camp instead. So this is a paraphrase of what's going on in the story. There's a little bit of a retelling or reviewing there, but then I've included a non-integral citation to give a little bit of support as to where I pulled this idea from the story. So it's not integral. You'll notice the details, the author's name, comma, the date, comma, and then we notice the spacing very carefully. P dot, not PG dot. Some of you are still making the mistake of putting in PG. That's not correct. We just want a P dot for APA, then a space, then the page number. Then we close the brackets and have a period. Okay, so here's our first comparison and contrast cue, which is also one of our transitional cues here. Similarly, the veteran jungle stomper, Lakshmi, demonstrated that she knew the ways of Corbett Park far better than the humans riding her back. So notice I've put my signal verbs into the past tense within both of my paraphrases. And this is what I mean about an augmented citation section. Notice I've snuggled up, I've kind of placed both of the citations kind of side by side. So that becomes like an augmented center of my first triad. Okay, this is the middle of my triad. Here's my concept sentence. Then we move into the citation section or paraphrase section. We use those as synonyms in this case. And so next we know I'll be moving into the analysis section of the triad. Good, so we're happy with that. We take a look at the citation, everything looks good here, all the details are correct, so we can move on. Here's another transition. So you notice how I'm using these transitions to create cohesion within my paragraph, as I stated in the earlier video. Clearly, the author is showing, and notice now I've also switched the verb tense to the present tense. The author is showing readers through his character description that animals have a more instinctual connection with their surroundings, comma, and it is inferred that humans should learn from this intuitive wisdom. So there's my second example of a scoopable phrase right here. And that's a guiding kind of analytical phrase. So we'll highlight that in orange because again, it's a removable or scoopable phrase. We could take it out. It wouldn't change the core value of the sentence. It just adds additional detail. And notice, as we know with our new tool, the removable phrases, we surround the phrase in commas on both sides. That's why it's removable. It can be taken out without a problem.